Hey everyone. So, the big news lately has been about bank failures and the stability of the banking system in general. Now, most of this news is due to the failure of Silicon Valley Bank, which was quickly followed by the failure of Signature Bank. And in the few hours and days after those bank failures, it appeared that contagion was a real possibility, and a few banks saw their stock prices drop drastically, such as First Republic, which fell by 60%. And then on Tuesday, the ratings agency Moody downgraded the entire banking sector to negative and placed several banks on downgrade watch. Now, there's one reason at the heart of these failures, and I think it could have an impact on Social Security. I know that may seem like a reach, but you really don't have to try too hard to connect these dots once you understand what's going on. So, to lay the groundwork, let's talk about what's happening with the banking system, and we'll use the specific example of Silicon Bank since they are the one that seem to have started all of this. So the Silicon Valley Bank failure was the second biggest bank failure in U.S. history. This collapse was attributable to several factors, but at the core of it was a classic run on the bank where they couldn't keep up with the demands for withdrawals by depositors.
New lines appear on American streets, depositors swarming to snatch out what savings they have left before it's too late.
This is raising concerns among people who remember the 2008 financial crisis, and they're wondering if this is the first domino in a chain of bank failures that could lead to another crisis. The truth is, at least based on what we know now, is that there was really one big thing that resulted in the perfect storm event that took down Silicon Valley Bank. Here's the summarized version of what happened. Silicon Valley Bank specialized in banking for technology startups. During the 2020 to 2021 tech boom, they received a massive volume of deposits, and within 5 years, they'd quadrupled their assets. There was simply no way to responsibly lend money out as fast as it was coming in, so they invested the proceeds into long-term treasury bonds, which are considered the safest investments you can own. But the prices of treasuries are still subject to interest rate risk and the inverse relationship between the values of bonds and interest rates. So for example, if you buy a 10-year treasury bond that's paying 2%, and then a year later, new 10-year bonds are paying 5%, well, your bonds paying 2% aren't worth as much. And this is what caught Silicon Valley Bank. As the Federal Reserve started raising rates, the value of the bonds that they were holding in reserves started declining. And then as interest rates rose, the venture capital firms slowed down on their investments in tech companies, which forced those tech companies to begin withdrawing down their funds they had on deposit with Silicon Valley Bank. So the bank was sitting on a mountain of unrealized losses in treasury bonds just as the pace of customer withdrawals was escalating. Then the coup de gras occurred when two venture capital firms sent out emails to their investors urging them to get their money out of Silicon Valley Bank. This began the run on the bank that ultimately ended in them being unable to meet the demand for their withdrawals. Now, since then, there's been a lot of talk about this spreading to the entire banking sector, but I don't think that's very likely. Silicon Valley was a little unique in that around 90% of its depositors were over the FDIC limit, so they were already in the position for the least hint of trouble causing a bank run. But we do know that in the short term, the bank sector, especially the regional banks, will again be under heightened liquidity pressure like they were in the great financial crisis. But this time around should be quite a bit different. The financial crisis of 2008 taught the Fed a few lessons about dealing with these type of crises, and they've already stepped in to provide a backstop. And I think they certainly should as well, especially since the federal government was at least partially responsible for the issue with their extreme rate increases and the decreases in the values of the bonds. So what could this possibly have to do with Social Security? Well, it goes back to the Fed raising rates. When the Fed increases interest rates, it reduces demands for goods and services, which typically results in companies hiring less or laying off workers and potentially leads to the much feared recession. Now, we've already seen massive layoffs hit the tech industry, and the Fed has made it clear that their job is to stop inflation with the brunt-edge tool of increasing rates, even if it means those higher rates causes a recession. And the last thing the Social Security system needs right now is a recession. Social Security depends on the payroll taxes coming in to pay out benefits, and if unemployment goes up, there'll be less coming in through those payroll taxes. So hopefully the Fed will see the issues with their super aggressive rate hikes, and they'll go back to a more subdued approach that won't wreck the economy. The other thing that's worth mentioning here is that the federal government did step in within hours of the bank collapse with their backstops. Now, some have suggested that same thing is going to happen with Social Security, that when the trust fund is empty and benefits have to be cut, the federal government is going to step in and print some money to fix it. I don't think it's going to go down quite like that. Too many politicians have already realized that this program has tremendous potential to add to their longevity in office. And I think we're probably going to get to the 11th hour before anything is done, and then it'll be crisis time. Unfortunately, this means that meaningful changes that need to happen, like returning the program to its roots of an anti-poverty program, probably won't happen. But I know I'm getting way off topic now. For now, the issues with the banks is certainly something that we want to continue watching, and as long as you stick around, I'll be here to keep you informed. Thanks so much for watching.